What I'm going to talk to you next is basically about CBA 2, which is the collection of texts. So what I want to start off with first is just the rationale behind it. The idea is basically to replace the old system, which is a situation where a student is going into an end of third year terminal exam and expected to produce their best work. So that might be a short story, a speech, possibly both of them, depending if they're doing what sections of the exam they're doing, and create their best work under that time-pressured situation. To be replaced with a new system, whereby over a year and a half, between the start of second year and mid-third year, they build up a collection of texts over that period of time. And do it in a way that is informed, it's reflective, and it takes into account what they can learn as they go along through it, rather than being all tested at the one time. The first thing I want to draw your attention to is that you'll notice, and it's been explained already, that at the end of all of our collections in the first year book and in the thematic at the end of in the second year book, they have summative tasks. So there is written summative tasks and oral summative tasks. So students will be building towards things like reviews, articles, short stories from the minute they walk into first year. So there is nothing stopping students collecting their pieces of work from the moment they start in first year. The only thing that is different is that at the start of second year, they will be making a conscious effort to pick out their best pieces that is then going to be put into a final collection that can be assessed by their teacher at the very, very end, okay, when it comes to December of third year. What they're expected to eventually acquire by the end of this year and a half is 4 written pieces in 4 different genres. So there has to be that variety in it. So that's a short story possibly, it could be a review, like I said, an article, even perhaps their own poem. Any written pieces can be included in this portfolio of work. And I use the word portfolio as well because that's what it is, okay? It's a student personality coming out through their writing. Now, we toyed around with the whole notion of portfolio and students perhaps having a portfolio that went with the book. And there was 2 reasons why we decided against it. The first one is that obviously they're an add-on to the book. Possibly, they become an extra little bit of a burden on the student. They can sometimes ask the teacher, well, God, we need to do page 45 today. So it can become a little bit restrictive in that regard as well. The second thing is that if you're to hand out a portfolio book to a student, it almost depersonalizes the situation straight away. So it's no longer there. So what we've decided to do to account for this is we've created this My Collection of Texts. As I said, by that mid-stage of third year, they will be looking for those 4 really, really good texts that they've created. And what we've allowed for here is this little booklet is a place where when they get to that end game, they can write out those final 4 texts or write out a final draft of each one of those 4 texts. Along with that, if you open it up, we have designed it in a way, and again, this is up to the students themselves. They can create a contents for it, whereby they have the title of their piece of work, the genre that it is coming from. They may possibly like to attach an image that goes with one of those pieces of work, similar to creating their own little publication, if you like. And like I said, just to personalize it that little bit. Now, what we would be saying about this is that at the start of second year, this booklet would be collected by the teacher, and that it's not handed out until students are truly ready to write their final 4 drafts into this final little booklet. And in that way, I suppose, they can work to their heart's content. The teacher has the freedom to still use copybooks, all that sort of stuff. There's no restrictions in where they have to have anything. If they want to have their own folder, that's okay. Let them create their own folders over that year and a half. And that's very, very important that students get to create that little bit of voice for themselves. As you go through it, you'll see pages are provided to write their final drafts of their 4 pieces of work. And at the end of these spaces, you'll have a reflection note, a blank reflection note, which I'll talk you through in a few minutes, where they'll be expected to reflect on that process of creating that text. What did they learn from it? What were the difficulties of trying to get it done? The whole process of the writing, I suppose, comes back to what we were speaking about earlier on. Knowing what's expected, so that success criteria is there provided for them. So if we take the example of a short story, you assign the students a short story, provide them with success criteria, and they go about their business. What we would be suggesting, and it's regarded as best practice, is that when they come back with that first draft, it's obviously not going to be perfect. So then they can go, for example, and engage in some peer evaluation or some peer assessment, whereby they get feedback from their peers. In addition to that, the most important of all is the teacher's feedback. And along with that, they can then go away and create maybe a second draft. And as time goes by, if them themselves are not happy, they can create additional drafts again. And obviously getting to this final, like I said, the end game where they're putting in their final drafts. With these, when they arrive with the books, there'll be a little plastic pouch, because the expectation is that when students have those final 4 texts, that they will be able to also submit previous drafts that shows the genuine journey from what they started with and where they've finished up. As with the oral communication, as Mary pointed out, and as is included in our little folder here, students are expected to produce a reflection note on their piece of writing. What you'll see here is some reflective questions, what I learned from creating this text, what I would do differently next time. And there is a sample of those, both the oral one and the written one, provided in the assessment focus chapter. And it's well worth having read them and seeing the whole notion of reflection. But if you just flick through the first year book and the second year book, you'll see at the end of every chapter reflection questions, opportunities for peer evaluation, self-assessment, peer assessment. And the whole idea is building up the process as we go.